Aloha, everybody. It's August 30th, and I'm a couple of minutes late because every time I try to go live in YouTube, some glitches happen and I don't have it all figured out yet. So here I am, a little late, but better late than never. I am looking forward to seeing who's going to come in and join today. I've done a lot of live coaching today. I was in Investors Underground Room with Sam. Turbo Sam is his handle on Twitter, or X, as we need to call it these days. And it was a great conversation. I coached 3 traders, and we just, I think, because it's my 3rd time in that room, I think what's happening is every trader there is getting more comfortable with being vulnerable. And today, right before the room, in fact, Nate put out a tweet that said, the more vulnerable you are, the more powerful the coaching becomes. So that is the God's honest truth. The power of coaching happens when you're vulnerable. Also, when you're willing to be with the hard to be with stuff. I was just corresponding just now with a former client of mine. I was asking him for a testimonial, which he has already graciously given me. Can't wait to share with you guys. And one of the things that I said to him was just how he played full out when he did the work with me. And that is ultimately really what trading asks also of you guys. It asks you to play full out. There's just no half-assing it. And I think the key to remember as you develop as a trader, even if you're very sophisticated as a trader, you have to remember that this is going to challenge you. You sort of have to walk into it, not with negative thinking per se, but realistic thinking. I want you to walk into it knowing it's like, climbing Mount Everest. I don't know if you guys paid attention to Andrew Aziz. He's the founder of Bearable Traders. But Andrew talks about his summiting Mount Everest and how, humbling it was for him at so many points. And he shares this very profound part of his journey. 10 minutes from the summit, he saw these dead bodies that are there because, where are they going to take them? Everybody's doing something that's so risky. Nobody's able to really remove these dead bodies, especially in the frigid cold winds and, situations that, of course, happen up there. But he talked about how he was almost stopped. His Sherpa is the one who talked him into, encouraged him to go forward. And I want you to plan for those kind of daunting, horrific interruptions and to have a plan for that. His Sherpa was his coach. That was the person who helped him push through that fear at that last minute. You guys, whether you have a coach or you don't, you have to have kind of these guardrails put in place before you start this summit of becoming a trader. So I'll be quiet for a minute. Thank you so much. I did enjoy my birthday. Yesterday was my birthday, and I had such a great time. I have very good friends. I'm a lucky girl, and they all took lots of good care of me. I went to a really beautiful dinner last night. I'll post some pictures eventually on Twitter or X. And then I got to spend, I have very dear friends who overlook YPO Valley, which was known as the Valley of the Kings. It was this really beautiful, valley that the kings, the Ali'i, which is the royalty of Hawaii, they lived in this valley because it was so gorgeous and so, perfect for protection and to fish and to, have the farming that they do down there. They still do it. So anyway, this couple overlook this valley. It is this magnificent, it's just magnificent. You guys, if you don't know what I'm talking about, look up YPO Valley, which is spelled WAIPIO, and you will just have your breath taken away. So they weren't able to be there, but they know that I love, obviously, their views. So they were like, just go there. So I got to sit in front of this magnificent vista by myself for over an hour. It's like, that would be like sitting at the edge of the Grand Canyon by yourself. Like, who gets to do that? And that's the gift that I was given yesterday. So I meditated and I connected with that land, and I just, put so much of my heart into gratitude for the life that I've had, gratitude that I get to do what I love for a living, gratitude that I get to be a contribution to all of you who come into these lives. I have so many amazing human beings that like what I have to give, and I get to give it. And that's about as good as it gets. So I'm a very lucky girl. So thank you, Jazz. I'm really appreciate it. And yes, Tina, his story is so interesting. His audiobook was good too. Now, who are you talking about? Are you talking about Andrew Aziz's books? I think you are, because his books are so fantastic. I've read both of them, even though I'm not a trader, because they're so well written. They're simple, straight to the point. Yep, Andrew. But did you listen to his story? I think it's still up. At the very minimum, it should be on my podcast still. I did an interview with Andrew specifically about him climbing Mount Everest, and it's in there, that conversation. He talks at length. He also talked about this at his conference. I spoke at the Bear Bull Traders Conference that was in Times Square just a couple of weeks ago. And Andrew spoke too about his journey there. But I have to be honest with you, there's something about the podcast. It was a Twitter space that I did with Andrew. So I think it's up on my podcast too, but it might even be on Twitter X Space now. But he talks about a lot of the different harrowing things that hit him up on that summit, and just what he learned about himself. It's just a really powerful conversation. And also, the reason I love the Twitter Spaces so much is because you guys get to ask questions. He got some great questions from the audience. So the participation in those things, just like here, I know you guys I can't hear your voice, but at least I can see. It was on my podcast. Okay, Tina, good. Sometimes I can't keep track, guys, what's on my podcast and what's not, because there's just so much content I'm putting out there. Sometimes I'm like, I think I did that. Maybe I did. You guys know better than me. So thank you, Tina. So tell me your questions. All right, enough. I'm waxing on about all these little stories. Tell me what your questions are today, what your challenges are, what your successes are. A lot of times, one of the things that I see traders do often is they spend a lot of time on their mistakes and they don't spend any time on their wins. And that is just a disservice to yourself. You need to really put time, energy, celebration into your successes, into your wins. And don't worry about whether you made a lot or not of money. It's about, did you stick to your rules? Were you disciplined? Did you see something and get tempted in the past and this time averted that? You want to find the wins, guys. There's a great saying that says, when you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail, right? So when you're looking for mistakes all the time, you're going to see mistakes all the time. When you look for the jerk drivers, you're going to find jerk drivers. Remember the jerky boys? We call them jerky drivers. Like, you're going to find them. Look for your successes. Look for your wins. Look for the times when you actually stay true and disciplined. Catch those just as diligently as you catch the times you don't do things right, because you got to focus on the celebrations to just nourish yourself. You got to find a way to give yourself like a pat on the back. A lot of times I give a homework assignment to a client where they have a particular win, personal, professional, or in their trading. And I said, tell me what you're going to do when you, to celebrate that. And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, I want you to either buy yourself something or take an activity or to express some sort of mark and, what do you call it? A kind of like a stake in the ground that marks this win, that marks this success. Do you know 9 times out of 10, those clients don't come back completing their homework assignment? They're like, I didn't know what to do. I'm like, what? Like the easiest homework ever. And that's the one they repeatedly don't do. Why is that? Because it's really hard for us to focus on our successes and on our wins. Not good. So I'm glad you think that's a good perspective. So actually, I'm going to put it out to you six that are here right now. What is a recent win that you've had? Why is it so hard for us to reward ourselves? Because our culture indoctrinates us that things are never enough. Nothing we do is ever enough. So we all feel like we're still behind, no matter how much we do every day. If we get up and work out, if we stay true to our diets, if we avoid alcohol, like if we do 1,000 things a day, that's really good. And what happens? We notice the one thing. I didn't do my 10,000 steps. I didn't call my mother back. I didn't. But I'm like, oh, you did 100 million things really well. But we don't even remember that. And that's because the gremlin inside of our head is the one ruling the show all the time. That's why we got to notice that son of a bitch and move them out, because those gremlins are not helping any of us. This we talked about also in the Investors Underground room just now. It's Turpo Sam's room on Wednesdays. At once a month, I do it it's at the end of the month. And there was one conversation about one of the traders spoke to that sense of never feeling like he does enough. And when we pulled it apart and I started asking him some questions, it became apparent that he actually probably does do enough, but his inner gremlin is informed by this toxic culture that we have. This toxic culture is constantly making us feel like if we're not doing something, we're behind. And look, this is the downside, the shadow side of the productivity kind of era that we've all been in. Look, I started my business 18, 17 years ago. I read Tim Ferriss's book, The 4-Hour Work Week. Like I too was like, I have to be really mindful of my time. But there's something that gets lost in that whole application of productivity. And that's just like living. And that's like being bored sometimes. And that's like just taking a walk without a damn connective device with you. Just being. Like we are human beings. We are not human doings. But right now, most of us are being made to feel guilty if we aren't doing. All right, another tangent. Okay, so what are your questions? Come on, Tina. Come on, Jazz. Some of you must have questions. Give them to me. I'd like to speak to any challenges you guys have about your trading or about life. It could be anything. Just want to be a contribution to you guys, and it's always better. Well, I did just talk at you for about 17 minutes, but hopefully it was of value. All right, I don't see any questions. So I'm just thinking, oh, here we go. How do you stay grounded and help to control your emotions in trading? Great question, Jazz. So I think the key word is that staying grounded is a practice. What does that mean? That means it's not like you can ever do it perfectly. If you've ever had a yoga practice, if you've ever, perhaps had a certain way you exercise, it's not like you can do that and ever be done. It has to be done on a continuous basis. When something's a practice, trading is a practice, right? There are days you get it right, days you get it wrong, days you actually get it right, but because you're unlucky, everything goes to hell in a handbasket. There were days when you completely were probably an idiot about something and you got lucky as hell and it turned out to be okay. Like those kind of variables are pretty diverse. The same with life, right? The same with being grounded. There's going to be days you're not going to feel at all grounded, no matter how much yoga, meditation, incense you burn. And there are going to be days where it may not feel like it's that accessible to you, but you stay long enough to connect to it. Groundedness is simply a self-awareness, to connect to your body, to be in touch with what's physically and emotionally happening to you now. And I saw that part of the last part of, your inquiry about controlling the emotions. This is the thing. It's going to sound kind of crazy, but you don't really get to control your emotions. But by being aware of your emotions, that actually facilitates your ability to not be on the leash of your emotions. So ultimately, what you're looking for is a sense of acknowledgement when a feeling comes upon you, an acknowledgement of how an emotion might be coming full throttle through your kind of heart and soul and mind. Panic for one, anger for another, fear, right? Those things happen. They start before we even sometimes are conscious, when we'll just feel like we're seized by them. As soon as you start to notice that you are seized by an emotion, that's SEIZED, as soon as you feel seized by that emotion, notice, just say to yourself, I'm panic stricken right now. I feel terrified right now. I feel furious right now. Just notice. Even that is going to just give you like a glimmer of space between you and the emotion. Just a little bit of space is all any of us need. In that space, we now are back in the driver's seat. The feeling will flood through us, it'll rush over us, and then we notice. And now we are not on the leash of it. We still might have very strong feelings, but that moment, at least we're seeing, oh, you know what? I am in full red alert response reaction form. Let me pause. Maybe you can pause. Look, there's times you're not going to be able to pause because you're going to have to finish what you're in the midst of. But as soon as you can, you're going to need to catch your breath and pause. The key is that this pausing and this noticing is the key to the emotions not throwing you for a loop. They are going to throw you for a loop, and you're going to just notice, oh, there it is. I don't know if you've ever gotten caught in a riptide, Jazz, but one of the first things you have to notice about a riptide is that you're caught in it, right? Again, noticing. I have been caught in a riptide, and not as often as you would think. Thank you. I'm glad. Oh, good. You never got caught in a riptide. Good. I'm really glad. But I'll tell you, Jazz, you've been caught in the riptide of training. That I completely would believe that you have been caught in. But it's the same thing. So the thing about a riptide is, as soon as you notice you're caught in the riptide, you have to stop fighting. Yeah, I've been squeezed before. Sure, that's what a riptide feels like. And the first thing that happens in a riptide is you panic. I've been caught in them. And the first thing you do is you panic. You're like, holy shit, I'm in a riptide. How do I get out? I can't get out. No matter how hard I swim, I can't get out. But just the pausing of like, okay. And this is the most fascinating thing about a riptide, is as soon as you do notice, what you're supposed to do is, if you're able to find out which way the current's going, because what's happening is, the ocean is going this way, you're out there, and normally you would swim back towards shore. But the way you get out of a riptide is you have to find out where the current is going. It's going this way, adjacent, parallel to the beach. So that's what fucks you up, because you just want to get into land now, right? Usually you didn't notice the riptide. And so when it's happened to me, I'm already quite out of breath. I'm already like, oh my God, I don't have a lot left in me to get back to that beach. The last thing you want to do is to swim sideways. No, you want to get to land as quick as possible. But when you're caught in a riptide, you are not supposed to do that. You have to find the current, because the current is pulling you this way, and you fight it and you will never win. So you have to go with it. And as soon as you go with it, what happens is you naturally, through the ocean, the currents of the ocean, you will have the ocean get you out of it. So you have to expend very little effort. And the people that spent all the effort fighting it are the ones who usually drown. Unfortunately, the first riptide I got caught in, I almost drowned because I didn't notice that I was caught in riptide. And by the time I did, it was a very subtle riptide. Give myself, a little props for that. It was very subtle. So I just kept noticing that even though I was swimming, because I'm a good swimmer, I was in a swim team in high school, I swim regularly, I did not notice it. And I spent probably a good 15 minutes trying to swim out of it, not getting any closer to the beach. And of course, now I'm really panicked. And it wasn't even a lifeguard. I was taking surf lessons on the Jersey Shore, believe it or not. And this other surf instructor saw me and started screaming out, "You are caught in a riptide, stop swimming." And so yes, I started to kind of realize in that moment, but he was just like, "Lady, you're going to kill yourself because you're not going to be able to get out of it." That, I think, is probably the best metaphor. Every time I talk to you guys, I come up with a better metaphor than the last time, thanks to your questions. The last time we came together was 2 weeks ago, was emotional. What did we say? Were you guys on that? It was the emotional pattern recognition. That's what we came up with last time. This week, we're going to talk about the riptide is the new best metaphor for traders. You guys have to figure out, not that I want you to get caught in riptide, Jazz, but I kind of do, like gently or like with a lifeguard handy, because I want you to, sometimes we learn our lessons physically. Like I'll never forget that lesson, right? Because it was a visceral lesson, right? A mini riptide, a pre-planned mini riptide with like 17 handsome lifeguards around you. That's what I want you to have. So you can be like, "Oh yeah, I get the field tip," but then all these lifeguards saved me and gave me mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. That would be fun. My first boyfriend was a lifeguard. I have a crush always on lifeguards. They're just the ultimate romantic figure saving you, from your doom out of the ocean. All right, Tina says, once finally finding consistency, it seems the gremlin creeps in and it becomes a concern it won't last. Oh my God, that's so great, Tina, that you have that identified. Well done, you. Do you have any suggestions to rid that mindset? Well, actually, this is not so much about mindset as much as it's about taming your gremlin. So you want to do the homework in that gremlin book, because what that gremlin is doing right now, and this is such a subtle son of a gun, you got to really get this one nailed, because when we do start to win in life, in trading, in relationships, we can absolutely have a whole collection of inner saboteurs, inner gremlins that start to tell us it's not going to last. Who are you kidding? The other shoe's going to drop any minute now. That is the inner gremlin or gremlin. So you got to get that gremlin identified and named, because it will sabotage you. We all need to read this book. I need to read it again. And I've read it probably 20 times, 30 times. It is such a powerful book. And it just helps you identify, again, simply notice. I think I told you guys, right? That in fact, that client today that I was talking to, he is the one who got the tattoo. He got a tattoo on his arm of the book's most famous 2 words in Taming Your Gremlin. Simply notice. That, guys, is the power. Simply notice, Tina, when that gremlin starts to tell you it won't last, and you tell it to shut the fuck up. That's what you're going to tell it, Tina. No ifs, ands, or buts. It's a liar. It's out to ruin you. It is not your friend. It is not trying to protect you. This is what the gremlins want us to think. They want us to think they got our back. They want us to think if it wasn't for them, we would not be where we are. That is utter bullshit. And that's how they keep staying around, stuck in our head, because they convince us that we need them and that we're where we are because of them. And it is so, so a lie. I remember you recommended a Trees for a Cause. Good, Chaz. I'm so glad you remembered that. So now it's time to read it before I see you at the next Trees for a Cause, because I'll be there in November and I'll be like, Jen, did you read the book? It's going on here now. So you better get it. Get it, girl. Yes, I'm speaking at Traders for a Cause. I'm very excited to do that 2 years in a row. And I also have, hopefully I can make it again this year. Yes, I hope you can. That would be fun. Come and introduce yourself to me. And just say Riptide when you see me, Jazz, and I'll know who you are. The other thing that's happening, so happy that you're speaking, Ken. You crushed it last year. That's so nice. Thank you so much. It was so much fun to talk to you guys. It was just like, I just remember like everybody paying attention. And that is such a good feeling as a speaker. Oh, good. I like it. Hashtag Riptide. I think we should start that trending on Twitter or X, whatever the hell it's called, Jazz. We'll get all the trainers to start using the hashtag Riptide, because that is exactly what happens to you guys, right? You get caught in it. So here, long story short, let me go back to this Riptide story, because it actually is such a great metaphor for trading. So because I was not in tune to the fact that I was caught in Riptide, I had been surfing. What happened is it was a surf camp weekend. We had already had a day or two there. And then it was the second or third day. And we had a bunch of professional women surfers. It was all surf camp for women. And so we had pro women surfers there teaching us and so forth. There was a storm coming in, and ultimately none of us, we thought it was coming in, I guess, another day. Kind of came in that day in the middle of our freaking lesson. It was like a full day at the camp. And what happened, because we were learning on really long boards, they were long surfboards, like 10, 11 feet long. Because they were so long, this school did not have ankle straps. So what happened is I was, with my surfboard paddling out, and all of a sudden waves went from like, small waves to like 4 or 5 feet waves. I was like, holy shit, like it just came out of nowhere. And these waves, one of the waves just came, knocked me over. My board got taken by the wave, and it wasn't on an ankle strap, so I didn't have anything to hold on to. And so I was much further down the beach, likely because of this Riptide. And again, not being able to get in, very far out at this point from the beach, when this guy, was yelling, "You're in a Riptide." I think I said, "I think I'm in a Riptide." He's like, "Hell yeah, stop freaking fighting it. Like, you're losing all your energy." And there wasn't any lifeguards around, which was a mistake on the camp's fault. That was a mistake on the camp's side. But this, guy was coming towards me. I'm a good sized girl. I'm a curvy girl. And this guy was like a little peanut. He was like, 5 foot tall, maybe 100 pounds soaking wet. And I'm like, this guy ain't going to be able to save my ass. He has no lifeguard. I could just see he was like, what am I going to do with this woman? And I'm like, he's not going to be able to get me all the way in, because we were so far out. And I was freaking out. I have to tell you, it was one of my near-death experiences, because I was definitely very close to out of breath. I was so exhausted being out there so long from the surfing. Surfing is so exhausting, never mind having this situation unfold. And, basically the guy got to me. He's like, "How are you doing?" I was like, "I don't have a lot left, and I don't think I can swim all the way into shore." And he, yeah, exactly. He confirmed it for me. And then basically what happened is another wave came in, a big wave. And guess what the wave brought with it? A surfboard. Not my surfboard. Everybody out there lost their surfboards, because nobody had them tied to their ankle. because I was out there praying pretty hard at that point. Like, I need a miracle because this guy ain't going to get me in. I can't get myself in, and I'm too far from shore to swim because I've been out here for so long. And that wave came in, and I saw the surfboard. I grabbed the surfboard like my life depended on it, because it did. And this Yahoo yells, grab the board. And I'm like, no shit, Charlotte. Hell yeah, I'm grabbing that board. Like, I'm dead if I don't grab the board. And he grabbed it too. Again, it's 10, 11-foot board. And he just was like, you hold on with everything you got, and I will kick us back into shore. And that little guy did. He got us in shore. I couldn't kick. I was done. I was cooked. Like a wet noodle. I was done. And he kicked us. It had to be at least a mile. It's possible it was more. I mean, we were far out. And that is how I lived through my first and thus far last Riptide experience. But I give you all of that story because I think, as I tell a story through the metaphor of trading, it's the perfect metaphor. I think it's very easy to panic when you're in your trading Riptide. I think it's very easy to freak the hell out and lose your shit, right? It's so easy, but you can't. And that mistake could have cost me my life because I wasn't paying attention to the Riptide. And I don't want you guys to ever have that happen. How are you, Jazz? I'm so glad you're here. It's very easy. We're talking about Riptides, ocean Riptides, and how that metaphor, Jazz, is just like a Riptide traders go through. So instead of, we came up last week, you were here, Jazz, we came up with the emotional, what do we call it? We called it the I wrote it down someplace. Having to know, what was it? Your emotional programming. I don't know. Maybe you can remember, Jazz, for me. I have it in one of my notebooks. I just have to go look for it. But we came up with a great metaphor last week. So this week, it's the Riptide metaphor. Let's see. I'm looking through my notebook because I think I jotted it down in the middle of that session we did last week. What I'm trying to figure out, guys, is how to make sure the chats show up when I let these lives replay. And I don't know if I'm doing it right. That's part of why I get late. I'm late all the time because YouTube asks me a whole bunch of questions, and I never want to miss that question because I feel the chats are such an important part. Emotional pattern recognition. That was last week's magical creation that came out of your amazing questions, guys. And that was it. Okay, got it. Emotional pattern recognition. But today's magical catchphrase is Riptide. Jazz has it with the hashtag, so we're gonna use that. We're gonna try to make Riptide trends with the traders because I think it's such a powerful metaphor. So the reason I went into all that, guys, with my Riptide story is you want to. It all started because of Jazz's question about not getting kind of taken over by emotions. And what I'm saying is that we all are going to be taken over by the emotions. The key is noticing, I just got taken over. I just got pulled. My heart, my emotions, everything just got triggered. Just notice it. That is the key. Okay. Recommendations on how to purge any anger from trading so you don't transfer it onto your family later. That's a good question. Not that I ever do that. Of course not. You would never do that, Jess. And Tom Hope, I said, okay, looks like, Tom, you have a question maybe up above. Maybe I missed that. I'm sorry if I did. So, Tom, I only see part of your question here. Or maybe that's a question. Okay, Tom, let me get to Jess's first, and then I'll take yours. Okay, so here's the thing. The anger that's pouring up and out from the trading probably has less to do specifically with the trading that day and more to do with anger over a specific timeline you or your gremlin have created for yourself. The anger is likely because you don't have a need met. Now, I'm just going to put words in your mouth and guess, and you can certainly tell me in the chat box. Is it possible that you have a inappropriate timeline? You say yes. Okay, so maybe you have an expectation of when you're supposed to be succeeding at this, and maybe that expectation is not really in step with reality. Like sometimes we put these inappropriately hard goals on ourselves, and if we don't meet that goal, we beat the hell out of ourselves, or our gremlin does and pretends it's us. So that's what I would ask you, Jess. Do some work around your relationship to your expectations. Anger is just an indicator that a need's not getting met. So perhaps it's your need for security. You might have a need for security, and perhaps because trading isn't working as quick as you thought, or you're not as profitable as you thought, you don't have security. So that one of the emotions that anybody would have in the face of not getting that need met, one of them could be anger. That could be what's happening for you. However, it's possible, and this is why I'm such an advocate of not necessarily trading just by itself. If you had another revenue stream coming in that you could depend upon, that you could get your need for security met, then you potentially lift the invisible pressure you put on yourself with this unreasonable expectation, and that potentially side swipes that anger. The anger at everybody else is sort of like not the issue. The anger is you with yourself and or with these expectations. You want what you want, which who could blame you? Nothing wrong with that. But you want to always check, are your expectations in the realm of what's an appropriate expectation? It's okay to have bodacious plans, but even if you have bodacious plans, you got to be reasonable with your expectation of like how fast this thing can go, how wonky this market's been for a while now, over a year, right? It's been whacked. So you got to take all this into account. I don't know how long you've been trading, Jess, but you got to think about that too. So at the end of the day, there's nothing wrong with you having anger, and you want to also track back what the feelings are, that rather the needs are that didn't get met. And if you don't have my needs list, make sure you sign up to Curtain Call and put that in the notes, or send me a DM on Twitter asking for it. I'll send you the link for you to go and download it. But you want to get clear on what needs are not getting met, because it's the needs that are not getting met that cause the anger in the first place. And your colleagues or friends and family that get the anger, that's just because the anger has to be discharged. So another thing too, as you work your way through this, find a way for you to discharge that anger in a way that's not going to cost you or your loved ones. Maybe you get a punching bag. Maybe you get a watermelon and put it in the tub and take a knife to it. Maybe you try, if you've ever tried to rip apart a 1-800's contacts box, it's almost impossible. I had one woman who was going through a really challenging divorce, and that box took her like 40 minutes to rip up. But boy, she got out a lot of her anger ripping that box up, because it's so hard to rip. I don't know what kind of cardboard they use, but it's not standard cardboard. But you got to find a way to discharge the anger. I also recommend clients sometimes create a smash shack in their backyard, in their garage. You put on goggles, you make sure you're safe, but especially anger, that has to sometimes physically be discharged, but you have to do it in a way that you don't have a cost to your physical body. Like some people run, they're runners, they get their anger out that way. But sometimes it's so compelling that they will run even though their body's in pain. You don't want to do that, because that's going to cost you more than it's going to benefit you. Same with family. When we pour our anger out on our family, it's ultimately going to cost us, plus it's going to cost them. So find a healthy way to couch pillows. Sometimes they're really big and awkward and heavy. You can pound those, not hurt anybody, not hurt yourself, but it discharges it and gets it up and out of your system. Yes, I'm 6 months behind on my goals, but I don't need to do that, but I want it. I'm glad you want it, Jess. I don't mind you having these 6-month goals, but I want you to just back up a little bit and find out, did you write these goals, or did your gremlin write these goals? If your gremlin is expecting you to be the one trader out of the millions that have ever existed to come up and blow past a quota for yourself that nobody in the history of trading has ever blown through, then that might not be an appropriate goal for yourself. So be realistic. Like read Jack Schwager's book, Market Wizards. You hear all the stories of all kinds of traders and how they have expectations on themselves too. And the ones who have these insane pressures blew up and then had to come back years later and do it all over again. So make sure it's you setting a goal and not your gremlin. And here's the other thing. Even if you have a bodacious goal, that is fine. But let's say you fall a little short of it, like 6 months, like it's not 6 years, Jess. So let's say you fall short of a very bodacious goal. Well, how about you don't beat the hell out of yourself because you even came close to it? It was still more than you probably could have even taken on had you not written that bodacious goal. So just keep an eye out. Are the goals in the realm of reality? Part of this galaxy at least? And if you don't meet them all perfectly, did you even secure some of them? Be proud of that too. So that's your homework. All right, Jess, hopefully that helped. We must find a healthy avenue to release the anger. Absolutely. Look up Smash Shack, guys. There's used to be a store in California. There's a woman now, I think she might be in the South. She has a big 18-wheel truck, and she's tricked it out so that you can go in there for an hour and bring dishes and put on goggles, protective gear so nothing gets hurt, and just get the anger out. I have done that myself. It's so cathartic. It's really great for men to do. It's really great for women. Women have a tendency to be culturally, shamed for feeling anger or expressing anger, and men today too. So anger is just a human emotion. There's nothing wrong with it. It's not bad, but it has to be discharged in a healthy way. And we want to keep the costs as low as possible, certainly not on other people, certainly not on ourselves. All right, Tom, I'm going to your question. I don't know that you had something before here. So you have, by setting a limit lower, buy order, I let the wave come to me. Good job, Tom. I totally get what you're saying. Well, freaking done. This is a longevity game, guys. Again, this is a surfing story, but when I first was taking my surf lessons, most of the exhaustion for me was the paddling out. It's exhausting. I was so exhausted that first lesson that I threw up because I had nothing left in me. I was so exhausted. And that's what I want you guys to really see here. Most of surfing isn't surfing. It's paddling out. It's being knocked over and going back out and wading. Surfing is so much like trading. And if you want to do it and go the distance and get just a couple of perfect waves, you're only going to be able to do that if you aren't throwing up from exhaustion, if you aren't ruining your capital. You have to think of this as a long tail game. It's not going to happen. You can't go out to the beach, get onto your surfboard and say, okay, where's my perfect 5-foot wave that I'm going to ride into shore? And yet so many traders come into trading thinking, oh, that's what they're going to do. No, it's just not how it works. So I want you guys to just get the concept of what that surfing world really is. It looks really sexy and glamorous, just like trading does on the outside. But then you get inside and you realize how much is boring, how much is waiting, how much is patience related, how much is not taking trades that actually protect your account more than even sometimes taking trades. That's what I want you guys to really, think about. All right, here. What did I miss? Did I miss anything here? Maybe there was one more question. I don't see it. Okay. And the other thing I wanted to say too, just in reference to Traders for a Cause, is that I have 2 things on auction. There's a dinner with me. It's a little pricey, I'll be honest. And we've sold 1 ticket to this dinner with me, but there is 1 ticket left. Go to the Traders for a Cause website to see if that's your cup of tea. And I also have auctioned off a half-day VIP experience with me. That too has got a little bit of a high sticker shock, but it is being auctioned. There's, I think, one bid on it now. So those are things you guys might want to consider if it's your cup of tea. And also, what I always forget to tell you guys is to please sign up for my newsletter. I'm going to put the link now here in the liner's notes. If you already are subscribed to Curtain Call, then you're good to go. But if you aren't, I'd love for you to sign up there. And if you're not subscribed to my YouTube channel, please subscribe. I would love if you guys listen at all on iTunes to my podcast, having a testimonial on iTunes. I think the last time I got a testimonial on the iTunes platform or podcast platform was 2 years ago. So I could use some there too if you guys like what I have to say. What else? Do we have any other questions? I've gone for about 45 minutes. So let me know. Did I miss anybody's question? I don't think I did, but if I did, just let me know. There was a lot of chats and I was on a roll with my storytelling. Hashtag Riptide. I'm loving that. Today was a lot of coaching. I coached for IU, that I coached in my Discord room. And that too, guys, if you haven't checked out my trader Discord room, it's specifically EQ related, traderherojourney.com. I'm putting that in the chat box too. You guys could check that out and see if that's your cup of tea too. And then if you are interested, I'm going to do small group coaching for sophisticated traders and novice traders. If that's of interest, that will be small groups of 10 traders, and it'll be probably it's going to be a 6-week kind of sequencing. I was thinking 3 months, but now I think I'll do 6 weeks instead. So yeah, do send me a DM if you're interested in being part of that group. Or, of course, one-on-one coaching is always available. Well, not always available, but it is right now. I have 2 slots open. So I don't see any other questions. Do you guys have any more questions for me? I might be running out a little bit of steam if I don't have any questions in the box. I think the key today's conversation is get this gremlin identified for anybody here who hasn't identified their gremlin. Remember, there's a busload of them. We don't just have one. You are so welcome, Jazz. I'm so glad you're here and that you like them. These are only as good as you guys and your questions, so I couldn't do them without you. I really couldn't. So yeah, get your gremlins identified, guys, just for your own sake, because you don't want to be in a battle with your gremlin thinking that it's you. The key is you got to really get that those gremlins aren't there for your own good. And the other thing too, Rick talks at length about in my podcast episode with him and also in the book, is that we can't win an argument with them. That's what a lot of people, before they start to really appreciate what a gremlin is, they try to argue with them. They try to use their debate skills from high school on them. You're never going to win. These guys are too manipulative and subtle and, really just crafty sons of guns. So fighting them isn't the trick. Noticing them and not listening to them is the trick. So be sure to do that. Oh, that's so good, Tina. I'm so glad. It's my pleasure. Thank you for your sweet words. That feels really good. Thank you. Thank you. So get the gremlin identified. Second, simply notice when the emotions come up, when you get triggered, when you're starting to have a reaction. The other thing too that you can look for is a physical contraction, right? All of us have a physical contraction, a resistance. We're resisting fear. We resist panic. Like we're like, oh my God, no, I don't want this, whatever this is. That's a physical sensation that you can also start to tune into. That tells you, ooh, I'm caught. I'm hooked into this emotion right now. How do I get unhooked? I simply notice. That is the key. All right. And then I think we came up with this great new hashtag called Riptide, which is just speaking about how the key to getting out of a riptide is noticing you're in one in the first place. And we're going to try to make that a new hashtag for the trading world so that traders can start to relate to the emotional riptide that happens in a trade. Riptide, there it is. Hashtag Riptide. All right, guys, I'm going to close her up. I thank you all for being here, for asking great questions, for being so like cool to play with. You guys are just awesome. And I love the questions and the back and forth. You give me lots of energy. It's so much fun to do this with you. And I really appreciate you guys. All right, spread the word. If you like this, put it out on your X space, Twitter space, whatever. I don't even know how to take X and put it into like a language about Twitter. Anyway, take care, everybody. Hopefully, I'll see y'all next Wednesday. And until then, a hooey ho. Be well.